It's only a game. Why you have to be mad?
What is up, heroes of Dominion? This is Charlie with Hero Wars Central, and today we have episode 2 of Dan Buccini's guest appearance on the channel. And in this episode, he wraps up the discussion on his Astaroth, Nebula, Martha, Kira Lars base team. He kind of goes in a little bit more in depth into why those are the case after the first episode discussing the heroes and where and how to get them. So please sit back and enjoy this last episode of his walkthrough. And if you find it interesting or helpful, please consider subscribing. If you'd like to see Dan back on the channel, maybe talking about some other topics that you feel that I haven't covered or covered well enough, please let me know in the comment section down below. He's happy to be a resource to you guys, just as much as actually more than I am. So if you enjoy the video, think it's educational, interesting, helpful, please caress that like button. Enjoy the video. I've said enjoy the video 6 times now, so why don't you guys just enjoy the video, and I'll see you next time.
So good ultimates and those good skills that just deal damage. She boosts, whether you're physical or magic, or in Kira's case, it's pure, which is based off of her physical. She just boosts whatever, I use an example where I could boost her for healing. But let's say we wanted to be a little more aggressive with our mages. There's no reason why you can't pull Kira and start putting in Krista. So it's Krista, Nebula, Lars. That's actually quite nasty, especially with a tank in front of Krista. Because Krista, the more time she spends out of the crystal, she actually does quite a bit of damage. And when boosted by Nebula, that's a pretty solid person attacking the enemy's front. But let's say you wanted to go physical. You got Kira there, you have Nebula in the middle, and you can go Astrid and Lucas in the back. You can go Fox in the back. You'd be surprised how much damage they do. And people say, oh, I don't like them because I like the warrior roles, or I like Jew more. But if you look at positioning, in particular relative to Nebula, if you get her boosting 2 heroes, you can make almost any of these offensive heroes viable. And the real default here, if you want kind of the most proven way to do an attacker, you're going to do, I like Astaroth, I like Martha, I like Nebula, I like Jorgen. Those 4 are more important than who you're doing the killing with. You can pick any of the mass damage dealers to work with. Let's say you can't get Lars early on. You want to go Orion. Orion is an extraordinarily nice substitute for Lars. In some ways he's better. In some ways not as good. He obviously doesn't have a Krista, but Orion is an absolute boss killer in Outland, in the campaign, in adventures. He's just fabulous. He's great in the campaign. He also works really well with Dorian. I know we're talking a lot about healers, which is kind of an offshoot here, but really I think when it comes to investing your glyphs, when it comes to investing your artifacts, I'm not saying don't use another healer. I'm saying don't invest those long-term glyphs or artifacts unless you get Dorian, Martha, or Celeste. And I think Martha is the most important of them. So if you start in the campaign really early and you really want to use Thea and she's doing good with you early on, absolutely do her skills, absolutely do her levels, but not those long-term hard-to-get items like the glyphs and skin stones, and just wait till you get your long-term healer, your competitive at the top level healer. If you're on a server that has Thea really high, in top 10 in arena somewhere, I'd love to see the team. Every hero has a place. She works really well with vampiric heroes, speeds them up at the end when they're near death, works very well with Ishmael, right? That used to be a very popular build early on, so I don't want to say any hero is pointless. These are all really general statements, but I just really like the versatility of Kira and that pure damage and what it could do. She brings pure, she brings physical. Lars is a good, multi-target attacker with penetration, and you could just really get a lot of mileage in the campaign out of this. If an enemy's weak to magic, Lars is really going to shine. If an enemy's weak to physical, Kira is going to shine. and Kira is going to chip in no matter what because of all the pure damage. So it's a really good attack method. Really lets you branch out. At some point in life, you're going to need 15 heroes for arena, and don't get too caught up on it, right? If you make your top 5, it's a really balanced team like this. You throw in, Nebula as your 6th. We talked about Galahad, that's 7. You now have 2 tanks that you could spread out in Grand Arena. You have 2 healers that you could spread out in Grand Arena. We talked about Jorgen. Let's say you got Jorgen and Nebula, you could spread them out in Grand Arena, and you'd be amazed how Nebula, one of her key functions that not a lot of people talk about is if you have her really strong in your team, stronger than, let's say, she's 6th, right? You have your top 5. She may not be in it, but she's number 6. And then there's a big drop off after her. She's going to bring all those heroes that are dropped off, she's going to bring them up a notch when you put her in the middle of 2 of them, right? She's going to elevate them. So a lot of times when you're thinking who to collect, and you're not going to invest in them like your top 5, you can think, where does Nebula position relative to these heroes? Can I get 1 or 2 for in front of her, 1 or 2 for behind her? And now you're seeing, especially in that behind position, that's a lot less popular, those heroes, but you're starting to see their utility when you really optimize what she can do to boost them, and do a lot of good things. I've done some funny things with Martha and Astaroth, like I've explained, and then I put Ishmael, Nebula, Fox. Nobody uses Fox, but boosted by Nebula in the middle there, she does really, really good. She helps out Ishmael a lot. She has that blast back, pushes the tank back, and exposes the next rank. Faceless lines up behind Nebula. Faceless is a great manual hero. Faceless is great with the twins. Nebula lines up in between the twins. There's a lot of really, really good uses if you think about that from a positioning standpoint. Just make sure you don't get too many people that are in front of her, or I guess maybe someone goes crazy and gets too many that are behind. So ideally, you have a really good tank up front. If you don't have Cleaver, don't worry about it. I really think you can get a lot of mileage. You could be aggressive at Galahad. You could be defensive at the Staroth. I think if you have Martha and 5, you are really doing a good job to keep your tank alive. And I think you could do a lot with those tanks. And that's the restart team. It's done quite good. I feel like I can modify it quite easily. I can, build and stem off of it. You can simulate it in max mode if you don't like it. And for anyone who thinks, hey, I think there's a much more efficient way of doing 5 that'll do everything we need it to do and still be competitive in Arena and Guild War. And I just haven't seen it. I think the pure damage is the real differentiator. I think what that really brings to the table, that's not something I saw in the stat sheets. So the adventures, right? Even low-level adventures, have fun with it. Play around. See who gets affected by what reductions. Look at the pets. Look at who their patronages can go to. And since we've talked a lot about pure damage, I really think we should look at Elbus. He's the pet that's the dragon, and he basically has a lot of really nice skills that would combo with a Kira team. And going to Sanctuary now just to look this up, so I'm not going too crazy here, but Albus has the Breath of the Ancients, and he deals pure damage to the enemy with the highest health. Kind of nice just by himself. And then he has that concentration where he basically is going to gain bonus damage, and it depends on all the pure damage dealt to the enemy team. You can do something crazier. This is crazy. This is not play tested. I don't have all the pets max, but if we go back to our conversation where you have Astaroth and Martha, I put Nebula in the middle. I can actually do Kira and Heidi. I know that's ridiculous. Really do not level up Heidi, but just follow me for a second here. Let's say I'm doing a lot of pure damage with Heidi. She does deal a lot of pure damage. I'm doing a lot of pure with her, and definitely doing a lot with Kira. This concentration skill, if I had Albus on the field, it just might be out of control. It might be the highest damage output you get from a pet. It really might. But what's really nice about pairing Elbus with Kira. I mean, that's really the big pair there is the Violet ability, right? When you get up to Violet, she's going to increase pure damage dealt by the Master. And I don't know exactly how high that goes, but if you increase the pure damage, I mean, it's just going to make Kira very nasty. Very, 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 very nasty and very versatile. And there's not much of anything that I'm aware of that really blocks it besides in Adventures, those pure damage reductions. There might be something. There really might be something that takes it away. Demon Allegiance, for one, when it gets redirected, will do it. But few and far between. Very versatile. And if you're boosting the damage that Kira's doing, now she is boosting the damage every time concentration hits Albus, and I think those two, that's just a lot of damage synergy. Probably the most offensive and aggressive synergy in the game. So there's all these great things about Kira. Now, what's really bad about her? She is very fragile. Very, 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 very fragile. So, as great as it was getting the boost from Galahad on the attack, I opted for that Demon Allegiance to just extend her health a little bit, extend her life a little bit. And I have not been able to shelf the healers too often. Martha and Celeste I'm using. So I tend to rotate in and out Nebula and Lars and do some weird things like that. But, pure damage, it's real. And I'm sure through Adventures, limiting us to try this or try that, we're going to find some other heroes and hero combinations and hero pet combinations that it's not very obvious on the skill print, but it's going to be really observable. It's going to be very obvious that this stuff is nasty and potent, and I hope you find some of your own, and I hope you find ways to improve on these suggestions, and happy battling. Thank you.